So we normally release these videos every week, but last week I got really sick, and I'm still kind of, yeah. Anyways, this if I cough through this, I'm sorry.
That's not the plan.
That wasn't.
No, it's not the plan that he's
Oh.
going to cough through.
No, I thought that was the plan. It's just this is the coughing video.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
It's just.
Welcome to the coughing video.
No, actually, so when you're sick, you want comfort food, and we talked a little bit about comfort books. Like, are there books or maybe genres of books that you turn to when you're sick, when you're stressed, when you are in a bit of a reading slump? And so we thought we'd share 3 of our favorites that either are genre-wise or even just the actual book that gets us out of whatever funk in life that we're in. So I guess without further ado, these are 3 each of our comfort books.
Yes, I like it.
All right.
All right. I'm going with The Goose Girl, but more so not even this book, but more like this was my favorite book as a teenager.
Okay.
And just kind of just simpler times, and maybe this might have been my first favorite book.
Okay.
Maybe.
So would you say this is the book that brings the comfort, the memory of the book, the genre, like what?
All of it.
Okay.
And like the person who recommended it, like all of it. It just makes me happy. And I'm really due for a reread. So maybe that's why it's on this list, because it's really it's getting close. I'm ready to read this again. So.
Interesting. I like it.
Okay.
Great. Well, the first one I have here is Stormfront, right? It's the first in the Dresden Files. It was actually weird. As I was thinking about these type of books, it was interesting to see that this series has really become kind of a comfort series for me. Where oftentimes if I'm in between books or I'm just struggling to move on in books or just, in a reading funk, I'll go to a Dresden one because I know it's going to be fairly quick. I'm going to be entertained, and it's just a comfortable world to be in. It'd probably be an exceedingly uncomfortable world to live in if it was actually there.
Yeah,
but
I
it's a
agree.
comfortable world to eavesdrop on, is probably the best way to say it. For those that don't know, just a quick summary, the Stormfront is the first book in the Dresden Files. Dresden Files follows a wizard named Harry Dresden who lives in Chicago, in modern-day Chicago, as he fights things in the underworld. Incredibly entertaining, very, very fun, very, very different, and I guess an area that I'm exceedingly comfortable coming back to again and again and again. And thankfully, there are a lot of books, and so you can keep coming back to it over and over again to dive deeper into another episode in Harry's life. It's very much an episodic thing. I think that may be part of the comfort, is I don't have to read one of these and feel like I'm going to be left on a cliffhanger or it's not going to be resolved. It's very much like a TV episode. I'm going to go in, I'm going to get the background of, hey, what's happening. At the end of it, it's going to be resolved, and it's going to cue things up for another book eventually, but it's not going to leave me feeling like, oh, I need to really jump to the next book in a series to get resolution.
I like it.
So, yeah, love Dresden Files for that purpose. So, definitely a comfortable thing for me there.
Speaking of wizards named Harry,
Oh.
I couldn't not bring this in because this is like, I don't reread books.
That's
like
fair.
It's a big deal for me to reread a book, and I've probably read this series like 8 times, maybe, at this point. I will never not love this, and so it's got to make this list. There's no way I could just not put this on the list.
So our son is reading this series now. So he's in the 5th book right now. He's really loving it. We've been reading it with him for a year, right? It's been going on
way
probably
longer than a year.
You think 2 years, maybe?
We're on the 5th one. Probably 2 years, 2.5, 2 years.
Maybe. Right. And so I remember as we jumped into this, and we first just started reading it with him, reading aloud, and then eventually we skipped to Audible, where he would follow along in the book as it would be on Audible, and we'd be there with him. But other times when reading kids' books, this is a poor parenting disclosure here, I don't pay all that much attention to what the kids are reading to me. I'll pay attention where I'm like making sure they're saying the right words, or if they're struggling with something, then I go back to it. But I don't know if I can tell you much about the plots or any of those type of things of some of those kids' books. I am riveted to Harry Potter every time it's on, right? I'll be like doing dishes. I'm not the parent reading Harry Potter with him right now, right? So I'm like doing dishes and hear it on over there, and I will listen to every word that's happening there. Like, it is just a fun world to come back into.
The happiest, I love it. I will never not love it too. And then loving reading it with my kid, having him experience it for the first time.
Yeah.
It's pretty special.
Yeah, very much a comfort food. book if there ever was one.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. Interestingly, mine falls somewhere in here. This is going to be a weird thing to say. This is the Silmarillion, right? So this is Tolkien's Bible. But I remember being a teenager and in that awkward teenager phase of life that I don't know if I ever grew out of. But as part of that, I just wanted to escape, right? And I remember we had these reading times in school, right? I think you had that same thing, right? So it was like, I don't know, 25 minutes a day where it was just set for reading. Everybody come and sit and read. And I would pull out this or the appendices of The Return of the King, or I even printed out parts of History of Middle Earth and Wikipedia articles on Middle Earth, and I would just read because I would get lost in the lore and the history and everything about Middle Earth, and it was just such a safe place to go where I could just tune out the teenage problems around me and learn about this fantastical world, and so I really loved it. I know people really hate this book, right? It isn't, it's definitely not something you're going to pick up and read all the way through like a novel and just be enthralled the entire time. It can be confusing. It can be much like reading a documentary or an encyclopedia, but I just loved it, right? And so it is very much a comfort food for me in the same way that, maybe people like bad Chinese food as their comfort food. I don't know anyone that would do that, except for me.
The weirdest thing.
But hey, it works for me, and I love it, and I've really enjoyed it. For those that don't know, Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings and all of those written by J.R.R. Tolkien. It explores a fantasy world. It is probably the granddaddy of fantasy, if you want to describe it that way. It's hard for me to expect that people haven't read it, but if you haven't, or if you read Lord of the Rings and really are interested in more, the Silmarillion, if you can go through it, has some incredible stories. And in fact, all of the stuff that's in the Amazon Prime series of Rings of Power is all based out of stuff out of the Silmarillion. It's been twisted and changed quite drastically, but it's still based out of stuff here. And so you could read this and then know what everybody's upset about with the stuff that's being changed. Anyways, incredibly great comfort food. Highly recommend.
Okay, so my last, I don't know, genre almost of comfort food would be something that I know I'm going to enjoy and has a really cute romance. Don't laugh, but really, a romance. Something that I know is going to suck me in and I'm just going to okay, good. All right, this is What the Wind Knows by Amy Harmon. And it's phenomenal. It's so good. I loved it from beginning to end. There's romance, but it's not the only element to it. There's a lot of family and a lot of, I guess there's war and there's whatever. But it's time travel. She is going to Ireland to go spread her grandfather's ashes where he grew up, and on the way she transports to 1920s Ireland, and it's
Wait a minute.
just charming.
Isn't that the plot of Outlander?
Yeah, we've talked about that. It's basically Outlander, but it's just simpler.
Well, there's one book.
It's so cute. It ends in my heart, it hurts. It's so pretty and so good. I highly recommend this book.
Awesome. So wait a minute. I have one question here.
Okay.
Not about this book, but there's been very few books I've seen you read and immediately reread. But you did that to a book recently that hits all the same notes as this genre.
Are you talking about Fourth Wing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised that that's not your comfort food.
You're right, because I like young adult fantasy. I guess Fourth Wing is probably not young adult, but just teenagers and fantasy.
Fourth Wing is not young adult in the fact that it has explicit content.
Yes, yeah, content.
But it is young adult in the reading level.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
I think that's a good way
and
to
it's
describe
a college, and it's lots of drama stuff. So
Yep.
it feels teenage.
It's a magical school where they learn to fly dragons.
Yeah.
And has romance.
You're right. Maybe because
enemies to lovers.
It does have everything.
It's got everything she likes.
My neighbor is borrowing it. Maybe that's the only
Maybe
reason.
that's why you never. Okay, it was just a question.
Yeah.
All right. So here's my last comfort, and people are gonna think I'm crazy, right? So this is The Eye World. It's the first book in the Wheel of Time series. If you haven't picked up the Wheel of Time series, I highly recommend it, especially if you like epic fantasy, because it is maybe the best example of epic fantasy ever.
It's so good.
Right. It is phenomenal. And I've already mentioned that I love to escape. I mean, I read weird Tolkien parts for escapism. It is hard to find anything more that you can escape into than the Wheel of Time series. it is so vast, it has so many named characters, has so much going on that you can literally just escape into it for days at a time if you'd like to.
Weeks, months, years.
Yeah, potentially, right? And so it is one of those things where, just because this book finishes doesn't mean that my comfort ends. I can go and grab the next one. It also has been interesting as she's read them. I've read them as well to reread them, which is probably my third, maybe fourth reading of them. Probably third reading of them. And it is very much like the Harry Potter thing before. At any point of this book, I can jump in and just be riveted and enthralled and excited again. And the weird thing is, now knowing what the payoff is, there's little things where I'm like, oh, interesting. Like, that was set up forever ago. And that's been a really interesting thing to be able to come back to it and see how nuanced the plot and everything is. Highly, highly recommend Eye of the World if you want to jump into the world time. I definitely recommend it. The series does lull a little bit towards the 9th, 10th books.
I'm only on number 8, and
it
feels lully already.
I'd say 8, 9, 10 really lull.
Okay.
And eventually Brandon Sanderson finishes it. Robert Jordan, who was the author, passed away. His wife Harriet picked a new author to finish it, and Brandon Sanderson finished it and does an exceptional job. In fact, Memory of the Light is probably in my top 3 favorite books of all time. So anyways, really, really good, but a comfort I turn to all the time.
I will finish it eventually.
You'll get there. I'll force you.
So I'm on 8, and I just found out that my friend, who I told to read this a couple years ago, she's on 11. I've been going on this since 2014.
Yeah, you like space them out.
I really do.
You were also reading Stormlight at the same time and a few other things. Like, they would be hard to intermix some of those.
Yeah, I like to do like one a year is typically my goal.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, so in 7 more years we'll have it finished for her.
Well, when you put it like that, sheesh.
I know. Well, I'm curious what your comfort is, and also honestly curious what your comfort food is when you're sick. Some of those type of things. Share those in the comments as well as your comment.
Chinese food for him.
Yeah.
Lately, mine's Papa John's.
Yours is Papa John's, isn't it?
Those breadsticks. That'll pull me out of any sickness.
Weirdly, I just love, especially egg drop soup. That's the kicker. It's delicious when you're sick. Anyways, I hope that you're not contagious through YouTube, but I hope some of our book ideas are.
That was so good, but you said they're not contagious, not you're not contagious.
Oh, I don't want to catch whatever their stuff is.
Oh, okay, got it.
All right. Well, I'm Blake.
I'm Jamie.
And we're Blaming.
I guess so.
We'll see you later.